Sit down. Okay. Quorum being present, Committee on Foreign Affairs will come to order. I ask that members stand, recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask that this committee is meeting today for the consideration of a number of bills. H.R. 7036, the Data-Driven Diplomacy Act. H.R. 7028, to require the Secretary of State to submit a notification to Congress prior to obligating funds for certain art-related purchases and for other purposes. H.R. 6411, the Preshevo Valley Discrimination Assessment Act. H.R. 7054, to require the Secretary of State to submit Congress a notification of certain construction projects using non-standard designs. H.R. 4532, the American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act. H.Res. 515, commemorating the 90th birthday of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, on July 6, 2025, as a day of compassion and expressing support for the human rights, religious freedom, and cultural and linguistic protection of the Tibetan people. H.R. 4368, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative and Authorization Act. H.R. 3307, the Eastern Mediterranean Gateway Act. H.R. 7052, the Conflict Prevention Act. H.R. 6275, the China AI Power Report Act. H.R. 6875, the AI Overwatch Act. The chair announces that any requests for recorded votes may be rolled and that we may recess committee at any point. Without objection, so ordered. Pursuant to House rules, I request that members have the opportunity to submit views for any committee report that may be produced on any of today's measures. Without objection, so ordered. Lastly, pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements and extraneous materials for the record, subject to length limitations. Without objection, so ordered. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 7036, the Data-Driven Diplomacy Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 7036, to increase collaboration within the Department of State between the Office of Opinion Research of the Bureau of Intelligence and Research and the Bureau of Global Public Affairs.
Without objection, first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. And I will recognize the author of the bill for any opening statement that he may have. Representative Huizenga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the strategic communications play an important role in public diplomacy, or rather, as it's commonly known, soft power projection. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, to your vision and execution, the public diplomacy title of the State Department reauthorization package, which I will note was one of the few that passed out of this committee on a completely bipartisan basis, was recently signed into law via the fiscal year 2026 NDAA. These provisions revolutionize public diplomacy at the State Department. What has too often been treated as a glorified press shop is now transformed into an actual strategic instrument of statecraft with a clear authority, discipline, and accountability. This fundamentally shifts the narrative about communicating America's message to the world, our mission, our values, and contributions to the global community. However, trying to reach billions of people means nothing if those audiences still then hold negative views of the United States after a public diplomacy campaign runs its course. A new approach must be grounded in evidence-based messaging with measurable outcomes in order to calibrate future messaging strategies. The Data-Driven Diplomacy Act requires collaboration between two key State Department entities: the Office of Opinion Research within the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, known as INR, and the Bureau of Global Public Affairs, known as GPA, within the Public Diplomacy arm. Currently, the Office of Opinion Research is tasked with conducting public opinion polling in countries around the world to gauge foreign audiences' views on U.S. policy. On the other hand, GPA is then responsible for communicating that U.S. foreign policy priorities and engaging those foreign publics and their media. However, they haven't always communicated and haven't always been on the same page. And by tasking these two offices to work together, the Data-Driven Diplomacy Act ensures that the data that we're already collecting on foreign public opinion then directly informs and shapes our public diplomacy communication strategy. Shouldn't seem that radical, shouldn't seem that new, but that has not been the case necessarily, and it's time that we are doing that, Mr. Chairman, because for far too long, the State Department has been allowed to measure success really on impulse, assumptions, feelings, not anymore. The time has arrived. This bill ensures that the GPA communication campaigns are informed by real data on what foreign audiences actually think, and they can then track whether public diplomacy is moving the needle on foreign perceptions of the U.S. Moreover, this bill does not create a new bureaucracy, an important part of what this goal of this bill was. It leverages existing capabilities between offices that should already be coordinating but aren't necessarily, and this is what the impetus of today's bill is going to be, making those folks communicate. All of which is critical to extracting the most out of the State Department resources. Better data will yield smarter targeting for public diplomacy investment strategies. And I just want to thank Mr. Lawler for co-sponsoring and urge my colleagues to support this common sense bill that will make America safer, stronger, more prosperous as we tell the world our story. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I support Mr. Huizinga's bill. It makes sense to increase collaboration within the State Department between the Office of Opinion Research of the Bureau of Intelligence and Research and the Bureau of Global Public Affairs. One part of the department is already polling and surveying to determine foreign sentiment towards a variety of topics like governance, international security, trade, and economy, and other issues. This polling and surveying would provide critical data to other parts of the department that can inform our public diplomacy efforts. So I support this straightforward bill. I also, just want to say that, not directly to this bill, but I must just add that I was, somewhat disappointed that we're not marking up bills that I requested that responded directly to the urgent issues facing our country, legislation to prohibit funding for invading allied nations, including NATO, and for purchasing NATO-protected territory, and a clear statement that the United States cannot invade its allies. The American people across parties overwhelmingly oppose such actions, and ensuring congressional oversight over taxpayer funds, especially when it comes to potential military action, should not be controversial. Democrats on this committee have serious unanswered questions, and I suspect Republican members do as well. So exercising our Article I responsibilities is not politics, it is our job. By refusing to take up legislation and hold serious debate on the most urgent foreign policy issues of the moment, we are failing the American people and the Constitution we swore to uphold. But I will say, Mr. Chairman, also that your work on IA Overwatch bill is a very serious and important legislation that I'm going to be proud to support, as I am with all of the measures that we are marking up today. So with that, I yield back and I support the gentleman's bill.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself. I want to thank Representative Huizinga for leading on this bill. I appreciate your work on it. Since day one of this Congress, we have done everything that we can to advance American interests. And that impact, I think, has been measurable. I think we can quantify it in a host of different places. Now, key to accomplishing this is our ability to assess the impact of our public diplomacy and that impact that it's having throughout the globe. We have to know our audience, who the foreign populations are, how they view the United States, how they perceive U.S. interests. That's why I'm proud to support the Data-Driven Diplomacy Act, which will strengthen collaboration between the Bureau of INR and the Bureau of Global Public Affairs, And within INR, the Office of Opinion Research conducts public opinion surveys that assess how foreign populations perceive the United States and our interests abroad. Now, currently, this unique capability is not fully leveraged by the Bureau of Global Public Affairs. This bill ensures that public opinion surveys are shared between bureaus to, give our diplomats every tool necessary to conduct public diplomacy in the best way that they can, effectively shaping foreign perceptions of the U.S. and advance our interests. That is important. And with that, I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Any further discussion on the bill? No members? There being no further discussion, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Any member wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none. Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 7036 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. A roll call vote is being requested. Very good. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Thank you. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 7028 to require the Secretary of State to submit a notification to Congress prior to obligating funds for certain art-related purchases and for other purposes. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 7028, to require the Secretary of State to submit a notification to Congress prior to obligating funds for certain art-related purchases and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I'm going to recognize the author. I'm going to recognize myself. Thank you. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Burchett, for leading this important bill and his continued attention to responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. Art and Embassies program bolsters our public diplomacy by showcasing American creativity and celebrating the cultures of our host nations. That's something that we should all be proud of. Congress has long supported that mission while also recognizing the importance of transparency when significant sums of public funds are involved. In the past, Congress has established a narrow, common-sense notification requirement for high-dollar art purchases. That requirement has always worked well, provided clarity to the department, ensured the appropriate oversight until it lapsed. This bill simply restores that framework on a permanent basis, utilizing the language the Department of State is already familiar with. It applies only to individual purchases exceeding $37,500, the same threshold that Congress previously agreed upon, ensuring that routine activities are unaffected. The bill also applies this same proven standard to the residential design program, which support the chief of mission and the representational residencies that are essential diplomatic assets. These projects often involve artwork, furnishings, design elements comparable in cost to art and embassies acquisitions, and they warrant the same level of transparency. In addition, the legislation covers the Cultural Heritage Program, which preserves and restores culturally significant elements at U.S. diplomatic facilities. These projects can involve specialized services or commissioned work with substantial costs. In that, I want to thank my colleague for his work on this issue, and would any other members like to be recognized? Representative Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Representative Burchett for working on this bipartisan effort to extend congressional notification requirements related to art and curatorial services at embassies. Congressional oversight is important, especially as it pertains to our post and work abroad. This bill requires the State Department to notify the Congress when more than $37,500 in art or furnishings is to be acquired, and I will support this bill. But Congress's oversight rule of the department is about more than just these relatively small administrative programs or activities. I must point out that we have not had adequate briefings or hearings explaining the damage caused and skills lost after the administration's reckless firings of more than 1,300 career employees or the illegal dismantling of USAID, all management and operational decisions with life or death consequences. So again, while I appreciate this opportunity to work together on this bill, I again urge the chairman and my colleagues to step up to the plate and fulfill our constitutional oversight duties. And with that, I yield back.
Ranking member yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? We are waiting for a moment for the author of this bill, which I think we should all give him a little crap for being late for his own bill. He's always got a good joke for all of us. We're
Sure does.
waiting on Representative Burchett for a moment. Should I recognize anybody that wants to make a comment to Representative Burchett?
He's my friend. I gotta say something.
Zinke, it looks like you have something to say.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Issa,
you know, given enough time, I can come up with something.
we look forward to hearing it.
Thank you. Well, later today, when we bring up the secure embassy construction bill, I think what's important is, first of all, I want to thank Ranking Member Meeks for his personally having taken the time to look at it and to work together on finding language that was mutually agreeable. That's the kind of thing that this committee used to do regularly, and I'm glad we did. But most importantly, as we look at, relative to that bill, as we look at the budgets going forward, I hope we'll all realize that the only way we're going to make many of those career people that Ranking Member Meeks just talked about safe when they're abroad is to dramatically increase the speed with which we build embassy facilities. And I just want to, as we quickly go slowly, I want to just note one figure. The modernization attempt on standardized construction of embassies began during the Clinton administration. And in 1999, when it was passed, we didn't know how much it would save. It only saved 30 or 40 million a year, then grew and grew. But the amazing thing is, by 2005, we had dropped the average length of time to build from 6 years to 3 years. Today, that has gone back to 7 years. And so when we're looking at how we as a committee are going to steer the State Department back in the right direction, it is interesting that we have the opportunity to go back to the Clinton administration and the Bush administration and find something that was done there that worked, that has been unraveled, that we have an opportunity to reconstitute. And with that, I'm thrilled to yield back.
You did a great job stealing a couple extra minutes there. Well done. Just approve that. Representative
Mr. Chairman?
Burchett, would you like to be recognized to say something to Mr. Burchett?
I just want to recognize my friend, Mr. Burchett, who I know is a little bit late, but I am sure that he was in the gym this morning working out and doing what he needed to do. And I want to make sure that he left it intact. I'm sure he has a reasonable excuse for being there. And I know how hard he works in the gym.
He was in the gym. He was in his best Carhartt shorts.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm a little, and Ranking Member, you are correct. I see you on that treadmill every morning for 1 hour, and I'm up to 10 minutes. I'm a little under the weather. I'm not contagious. I got checked for COVID and the flu yesterday. I'm good. I'm just, if I was at home, I'd be in bed. I'll just tell you that.
So we may need a joke from you later, though.
Maybe. I'll give you 2 tomorrow. How about that? I'll feel better. And you are a dear friend, and thank you for being my friend, brother. He's also my fashion consultant. He always says, Burchett, what's up with that tie? Points me back, and I get one on, and then he gives me the thumbs up. If I had his wardrobe, Mr. Chairman, I'd burn mine.
I think you two should trade wardrobes for maybe a day or so.
Thank you,
Member
Mr. Chairman.
Meeks, you want to wear a Carhartt for a few days?
Well, I got on Carhartt. I told them I wasn't going to wear their dadgum clothes anymore because they weren't making them in this country. And vice president assured me this year they were going to start making this jacket that I wear in Tennessee.
That's a good foreign affairs issue.
It is.
On
It
that
is,
note,
brother.
I will recognize you, Representative Burchett. Appreciate your work on this bill, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Art and Embassy program allows the State Department to purchase paintings, sculptures, and other works of art for our embassy. I think it's important that we show off our best and brightest. As Alex Haley, a friend of mine, used to say, find the good and praise it. And I understand we want our embassies to be a welcoming place, but it's also our duties as member of Congress. Allegedly, we're America's checkbook. As my wife likes to say, we're like a bunch of junior high schoolers with a checkbook. Members of Congress to conduct our oversight of the federal government. This bill is very simple. It requires our State Department to report to Congress anytime there is an expenditure for the Art and Embassies program that is $37,500 or more. The overall reporting requirement is going to end soon, and I believe Congress and the American people should be allowed to know what tax dollars are being spent on. The bill was negotiated with Democrats in good faith and is a common sense way to keep track of federal spending. And I urge my colleagues to support House Resolution 7028. But, you know, what came to my attention was a man named Bobby Zimmerman had done some artwork that was pretty expensive. And as it turns out, Bobby Zimmerman is Bob Dylan. I love his music. I think if anybody can sing off key, then dadgummit, Tim Burchett ought to be a star as well singing. But yeah, I did. Thank you. But I do think that we should have some oversight. And one of the problems with some of this artwork is a lot of it's in the back of the embassy. It's not in the front. So the members of our embassy folks can see that. And to me, that just seems counterproductive. And I'd urge support of this bill. Thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Burchett. Any further discussion of the bill?
And I'd like to ask for a recorded vote, please.
Get there in a moment. Any further discussion? All right, being no further discussion of the bill, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 7028 to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the
On that, I
ayes
want a
have it.
recorded vote.
Motion is agreed to. A recorded vote has been requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 6411, the Preshevo Valley Discrimination Assessment Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 6411, to direct the Secretary of State to prepare a report on the treatment of ethnic minorities in Serbia.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I will recognize the author of the bill, who is here, and we thank you for being here. We don't have to have a discussion about the building of embassies or Carhartt or anything else, so we appreciate your attendance. I think that'll be fine. Mr. Issa got everything out that he wanted to say, and so you are recognized, Mr. Self.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of my bill, the Preshevo Valley Discrimination Assessment Act, which would bring much-needed accountability and oversight to Serbia's treatment of its ethnic minorities. Excluding Russia's war against Ukraine, the Western Balkans remain the most unstable region in Europe. As chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Europe, I led a hearing last month to promote balance in the Western Balkans. Although open conflict has subsided since the breakup of Yugoslavia in the 1990s, centuries of ethnic division, shifting borders, and political mistrust continue to haunt this neighborhood as various political crises threaten the post-Yugoslav order. This especially includes tensions between the Serbian government and its ethnic Albanian minority. Case in point, a 2021 report titled Albanian Minority on Hold, published by the Helsinki Committee for Human Rights in Serbia, reported that Serbia may be conducting a form of ethnic cleansing through administrative means of Albanians. Furthermore, the issue was again escalated in a 2025 European Commission report stating Serbia's institutional framework for the protection of persons belonging to minorities is incomplete as a new action plan is seriously delayed. persons belonging to minorities continue to face discrimination. One reported example includes that Serbian authorities call passivation of home addresses belonging to ethnic Albanians, effectively erasing them from their homes. Consequently, ethnic Albanians are losing their ability to have health insurance, own property, get a job, and vote. This passivation of addresses has resulted in declining Albanian communities, including Medvaja in the Preševo Valley region, where the Albanian population was reduced from 4,000 to approximately 400 to 500 Albanians. And this is just one example of the widely reported discrimination. Other suspected offenses include Belgrade's refusal to recognize diplomas and degrees earned in Kosovo, the prevention or hindrance of school textbooks for Albanian language speakers, and the use of law enforcement to interrogate, threaten, and intimidate local ethnic Albanians without due course or process. These allegations make it clear the United States must do its part to hold the Republic of Serbia accountable to offer its ethnic Albanian minority the same rights and opportunities that it insists on for its ethnic Serb minority in Kosovo, a key point. As such, my bill would require the Secretary of State to report on a number of widely reported incidents in Serbia's discrimination against ethnic Albanians, including in the Preševo Valley region. I would also like to make clear that this bill makes zero accusations of Serbia's alleged mistreatment. Instead, the bill requires a careful assessment as to whether or not such mistreatments are in fact happening and the scope of the reported discrimination. As the Trump administration continues to re-engage this often overlooked but crucial region, conducting meaningful oversight of Serbia's treatment of ethnic minorities will be a critical step to ensure stability and peace in the Western Balkans. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back.
Any further discussion of the bill? Ranking Member Meeks.
I support this measure. Human rights and democracy have long been core tenets of the United States foreign policy and a central feature of the hard-won peace in the Western Balkans after a decade of war and ethnic-based violence. The lack of accountability to date for atrocities committed by the Serbian government against ethnic minorities in the region, including ethnic Albanians, remain an obstacle to durable peace today. But it's not just the crimes and abuses of the past. It is also the continued targeting of ethnic minorities still happening today that must be addressed. This committee is extremely concerned that the Serbian government continues to use the levers of the state to harass, discriminate against, and persecute ethnic minorities in Serbia, including ethnic Albanians. And this bill will direct the State Department to shine a light on those abuses and take steps to hold perpetrators accountable. So I support this measure, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same.
Any further discussion? Recognize myself. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Self, for leading this important bill. Peace and stability in the Balkans is directly in America's interest, and I know it's something that you worked on personally for a good portion of your life and your time in the military, and so I know how personal it is for you. Now, since the fall of communist Yugoslavia, the region has stood out for a tragic history, years of conflict, thousands slaughtered, and entire populations hunted down because of their race. President Trump has made it very clear that he wants to use his presidency to cement peace in hot spots around the globe. Uncovering potential ethnic tensions in the Balkans will allow the Trump administration to build off the success of the Washington Agreement from his first term and correct these issues before any spiral out of control. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this piece of legislation. Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. Being no further discussion, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? There being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 6411 to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Very good. A roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will be postponed. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 7054 to require the Secretary of State to submit to Congress a notification of certain construction projects using non-standard designs. The bill was circulated in advance, and obviously in advance, Representative Issa spoke in length on it also, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 7054, to require the Secretary of State to submit to Congress a notification of certain construction projects using non-standard designs.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. And I recognize the author of the bill, Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. In 1999, after the bombings in Kenya that resulted in 224 deaths, 12 of whom were Americans, Congress acted on a bipartisan basis to recognize that we had to build better, build safer, and build quicker. That process continued until the late 2008, 2009, when we began drifting back into one-of-a-kind buildings. The cost overruns and the times can be seen around the world. I would point to London, where a crystal palace, in fact, depends on water in a moat for setback, and that facility, with huge cost overruns totaling well over $1.4 billion in expense, now finds itself with a Chinese embassy construction being built right over its data cables. These kinds of mistakes don't happen when you use standard build, standard construction, and standard setbacks. For that reason, our bill requires that you simply recognize that if OBO has a reason, overseas building and operation, to go off of standard, to use non-standard parts, or to fit into a footprint that is not standard, that they report to Congress, because clearly we've said we're looking for on time, on budget, and in fact, safe. One example, sadly, some years ago was when Ambassador Stevens and 3 of his protective element died at Benghazi. They died in a double-waved building, meaning a building that was waived to be an office building, but in fact was completely unwaivable as a rental property without proper setback and no Marine guards in any country to be an overnight residence. In fact, it was an overnight residence by design in order to save money because they simply couldn't and wouldn't make the construction proper. For that reason, I offer this bill to get back on track, back to a time in which, on a bipartisan basis, we delivered in half the time for 40% less buildings which today stand as a testament to good construction. In closing, Mr. Chairman, that doesn't mean that they all look like the same pillbox. These buildings are allowed to have fascias that make them look different, adjust for the topography, but in fact, things like bulletproof doors, bulletproof windows, and other elements are taken from a treasure trove of standard, mass-produced products that can be replaced quickly if something goes wrong. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge passage. Thank the members on both sides for supporting the bill and yield back.
Representative Issa yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
I want to thank Representative Issa for bringing this legislation forward. As members of Congress, it is our responsibility to conduct oversight to ensure that taxpayer dollars are being spent effectively, and this bill helps us do that. It's a straightforward bill, straightforward language, which requires the State Department to report to Congress when it makes a determination to build an embassy or a consulate building that doesn't use standard design. It makes common sense. Therefore, I support this bill, and again, I thank Mr. Issa for working collectively with me on that so we went language together. I really appreciate how we work together. So with that, I urge every member to support it, and I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself. Representative Issa, I want to thank you for your work on spearheading this important bill and your continued focus on responsible oversight of major U.S. investments overseas. This bill, it builds directly on the embassy construction consultation requirement, which was enacted back in the FY22 National Defense Authorization Act, and it updates in a very straightforward notification process focused on transparency and cost and discipline and good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. It ensures Congress has clear eyes into major capital investments abroad while making sure that it does not prohibit non-standard designs or dictate the department's architectural decisions. Instead, it simply establishes a transparent notification process when deviations from standard designs may carry cost, schedule, or security implications. Those are all important. Congress recognized the value of standard design templates in controlling cost, improving predictability, and accelerating the delivery of embassy and consulate projects. Standardization helps reduce unnecessary customization that can drive cost overruns and delays. If the State Department determines that a non-standard design is the best option for a particular post, all we ask is for that heads up and nothing more. Like other notification requirements included in this markup, the focus here is on consistency, transparency, and fiscal discipline, not micromanagement and not micromanaging. Ultimately, this bill reflects a shared goal between Congress and the Department, delivering secure, functional diplomatic facilities on time, on budget, while ensuring taxpayer funds are used efficiently and effectively to meet the mission needs, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Any member wish to offer an amendment? There being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 7054 to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is
Mr.
agreed
Chairman,
to.
could I request a recorded vote on
You
that?
absolutely may. A roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will be postponed.
Stan is here.
Very good. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4532, the American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4532, to direct the Secretary of State to develop a strategy on efforts to strengthen subnational cooperation between the United States and Mexico and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any time. And I now recognize the author of the bill, Mr. Stanton, for any remarks he may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing up H.R. 4532 for a vote today, and thank you to Representative Kane of Jersey for being my co-sponsor on this bill. It's an important bipartisan bill. Last Congress, this bill passed this committee by voice vote and passed the whole House with overwhelming support, and I hope we can get it all the way to the President's desk this year. As a representative of a border state from Arizona, I've heard time and time again from frustrated mayors, county executive, heads of local nonprofits, business owners, and especially law enforcement about the disaster effects of fentanyl trafficking in our communities. From 24 to 25, overdose deaths decreased nationwide by more than 23%. This amazing feat is a result of pressure on China to stem the flow of precursor chemicals, the work of the new administration in Mexico to stop fentanyl trafficking, the prevalence of naloxone to reverse overdoses, the hard work of our DEA officers who seized more than 47 million pills containing fentanyl and more than 10,000 pounds of fentanyl powder last year. But we have a lot more work to do. While overdose deaths decreased nationwide, they rose by 16% in my state of Arizona due to fentanyl and methamphetamine combinations. So the Trump administration goal of ending fentanyl trafficking and death is a worthy one. I disagree with some of the tools that has used, but I think there are ones that we could agree upon, including in this important bill. My legislation, the American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act, takes this task the Department of State with improving cooperation and collaboration between local leaders and agencies on both sides of the border. It aims to improve conditions between local law enforcement agencies, state and federal security forces, and our counterparts in Mexico by sharing data, creating professional development exchange programs, and supporting technical assistance to crack down on fentanyl traffickers. Because we need an all-hands-on-deck approach, and our local leaders are a rich, untapped resource. They are on the ground fighting the disastrous impacts of overdose deaths on our communities. They have deep knowledge and expertise and should be part of the solution. I've seen this sort of interagency collaboration work firsthand. Before I served in Congress or city government, I served as Deputy Attorney General for the state of Arizona. We took notice that cartels were using quick, anonymous Western Union wire transfers to launder the money they made trafficking narcotics. So we got to work creating the Transaction Record Analysis Center, or TRAC, that law enforcement across the Southwest can use to investigate and interdict the money laundering activities of national and international criminals. and to mitigate the violence associated with smuggling activities that fund these organizations. It's been incredibly successful and was instrumental in a 3-year drug bust operation, led to the seizure of over 4.5 million fentanyl-laced fake prescription pills, 66 kilograms of fentanyl powder, $2 million, and nearly 50 firearms. My bill would encourage such law enforcement collaboration with law enforcement. It also goes further, working to improve coordination between federal government and local leaders, businesses, hospitals, faith-based organizations who are working to combat the fallout of the opioid epidemic, like organizations treating substance abuse or creating alternatives to gang affiliation, and businesses that make fentanyl testing strips and innovate ways to keep our pharmaceuticals safe. Some of that collaboration is happening already, but it's on a very ad hoc basis. This bill creates important spaces for sustained and strategic collaboration to fight the fentanyl crisis, ensuring that we are using our resources and vast knowledge of our communities wisely. I hope I can count on the support of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to advance this important legislation again this Congress. I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Kane is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to speak in support of the American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act, a bill that I co-led with Representative Stanton. The fentanyl crisis in our country is alarming. Fentanyl is being illegally trafficked across our southern border, enriching cartel members and killing Americans. In 2023, 2,688 New Jerseyans died from overdoses. The most common drug involved in overdose deaths was fentanyl. These senseless deaths, increasingly due to counterfeit pills, must be stopped. The American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act takes an important step towards ending the fentanyl crisis. It directs the State Department to cooperate with Mexico to end the illicit trafficking of fentanyl. Additionally, it directs the State Department and Treasury to review enforcement, compliance, and reporting requirements on narco trafficking with our partners in the Caribbean. America must fight back against against the fentanyl crisis by coordinating with Mexico and allies across the Caribbean. I support this important legislation and encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, and I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition?
I think Mr. Stanton had to run out. You can hold 1 second here to vote in TI. I'll be right back.
I'll give my remarks a minute, and we'll let him
And I'll do
speak when he comes back. How's that sound? Or if you want to give your remarks?
I can do that.
Well, let's go ahead.
I was going to do it in the A&S, but I'll do it now. Thank you. I support this bill from Representative Stanton, and I thank him for his hard work on it. This bill would direct the Secretary of State to map out a strategy for increasing U.S. cooperation with Mexico at the subnational level. When we work with Mexico as a U.S. partner and not an adversary, we reduce violence, disrupt criminal networks, and save lives on both sides of the border. This bill is crucial to build on the dramatically increased cooperation we've seen from the federal government in Mexico, our largest trading partner. This legislation will also require the Secretary of State to explore ways the United States can expand financial access to the member states of CARICOM. For decades, bipartisan U.S. engagement through maritime cooperation, development assistance, public health partnerships, and disaster response has helped keep the Caribbean relatively stable in a turbulent world. Ensuring our investment remains consistent will deliver results and deny our adversaries a sure foothold in the Caribbean. So again, I thank Representative Stanton, and I support this measure and the A&S and encourage my colleagues to support it. And yield back the balance of my time.
Ranking member yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Representative Stanton?
I have an amendment.
We're not quite at amendments yet. Do you want to speak when we do amendments? All right. I'm going to recognize myself then. I want to thank Representative Stanton, Representative Kane for their bipartisan leadership on this piece of legislation. Fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45. We know that the drug cartels have been flooding our communities with this poison. They operate on both sides of the border, and defeating them requires cooperation at every level of government. This simple bill makes a practical, ground-up approach by directing the State Department to develop a strategy for strengthening subnational cooperation with Mexico, enhance coordination between U.S. and Mexican law enforcement at the local, state, and federal levels, will make both sides more capable of disrupting fentanyl trafficking networks. Likewise, exchange programs for professional development and better data sharing will help close any gaps in enforcement ability on either side. The bill also addresses challenges facing our Caribbean partners who struggle with access to the international financial system by directing a review of steps to expand financial access in the CARICOM nations. This bill helps strengthen these economies and reduce the vulnerability to illicit finance. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this common sense and bipartisan piece of legislation. Any further discussion of the bill? Being no further discussion of the bill, committee will move to consideration of amendments. Any member wish to offer an amendment? Representative Stanton.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. I'm not sure which number it is.
The clerk shall distribute the amendment.
The amendment has been distributed by electronic device.
Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4532, offered by Mr. Stanton of Arizona. Strike all after the enacting clause and insert the following. Section 1, short title.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The representative is recognized for 5 minutes on the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The amendment reflects the realities of recent changes at the U.S. Department of State. The amendment is simple. It directs the state to carry out this subnational cooperation strategy through the Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs and the Assistant Secretary for International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. I thank Representative Kane, the chairman and ranking member, for finding a new home for state to pursue such important collaboration. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the amendment, and I yield back.
Representative yields back. I support this amendment in the nature of a substitute. Do any other members seek recognition?
I too support it.
Very good. Any further discussion of the amendment? Seeing none. Does any member wish to offer? Wait, here we go. Being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by Representative Stanton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
No roll call. All right, no roll call, sorry. On the underlying.
Are there any further amendments? Seeing none. Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 4532 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to.
May I ask for a roll call vote,
A
Chairman?
roll call vote has been requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Committee is going to recess for 10 minutes. Committee will come to order. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.Res. 515, commemorating the 90th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on July 6, 2025, as a day of compassion and expressing support for human rights, religious freedom, and cultural and linguistic protection of the Tibetan people. The resolution was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the resolution.
H.Res. 515, commemorating the 90th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on July
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the resolution is considered read and open to amendment at any point. Without objection, the McCall amendment, in the nature of a substitute, circulated to members in advance, shall be considered as read and will be treated as the original text for purpose of the amendment. And I now recognize the author of the resolution, Chairman Emeritus McCall, for any remarks that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased today to rise, today to speak for people whose voices have been systematically silenced by the Chinese Communist Party for many years. The world is no stranger to the CCP's aggression, whether it's their religious persecution campaigns or their blatant intimidation tactics. We see the CCP's playbook everywhere, from the Taiwan Straits to the South China Sea. But today we must shine a light on one of the most enduring tragedies of our time: the CCP's brutal and ongoing subjugation of the Tibetan people. Perhaps the most egregious example of the CCP's efforts of such is their attempt to choose the next successor to the Dalai Lama. It is a national security issue. The CCP has spent decades trying to destroy Tibetan Buddhists. In fact, they killed many Buddhist monks in their takeover of the Tibetan territory. Yet they now claim the authority to choose the next spiritual leader of the Tibetan people. Let me be clear. This is not just wrong, not just morally wrong, but it's an insult to the religious freedom of peoples everywhere. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama stated unequivocally, the authority regarding his reincarnation or rebirth is a matter reserved exclusively to the Tibetan Buddhist leaders and the Tibetan people. It is not a decision for Beijing. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has made remarkable contributions to society through his advocacy for compassion, nonviolence, and religious harmony. Last June, we celebrated His Holiness' 90th birthday here in the Capitol, alongside many members, including Ranking Member Meeks. 2 years ago, I traveled to Dharamshala in India to meet with His Holiness. He told me that he would not be reborn in China, that he would be reborn in freedom. And I thought that was a very profound statement. The CCP, however, sent a letter to our delegation warning us not to attend, not to go to visit His Holiness. But we did not let them intimidate us then, and we will not let them intimidate us now. I presented His Holiness with wind chimes that play America the Beautiful. I told him that while the wind cannot be seen, it is a powerful force that is always present. And that is what the United States must be for Tibet here and now, a powerful, ever-present force for freedom and a voice for freedom. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I believe we should pass this resolution to show the world that the flame of Tibetan liberty will never be extinguished. The world is watching. The Tibetan people I know are watching this today, and I guarantee the Chinese Communist Party is watching here today, and I urge passage of my amendment. And with that, I yield back.
Ranking Member Meeks is recognized.
Thank you. I strongly support this measure by Mr. McCall. You know, as he indicated, I had the great honor of traveling with him to India in 2024 to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It was powerful to see his grace, his warmth, his optimism, despite the constant repression and harassment he and his fellow Tibetans faced from the People's Republic of China. It was one of those occasions where you could feel the presence of a man who was full of wisdom, and you could feel his presence as he entered the room. And for me, in my experience, actually, it was similar to what I felt when I was in the room with Mr. Nelson Mandela. It's one of the highlights of my career in Washington, D.C., just listening to his words, his thoughts, his vision for the future, and his determination not to allow the CCP to overcome the wisdom and the future of the Tibetan people. His Holiness turning 90 last year. You know, there were, of course, growing concerns and questions around his succession. We know that Beijing will try to intervene and try to co-opt Tibetan Buddhism for its own political causes. And that's why the United States must stand with the Tibetan people in their fight for religious freedom and the preservation of their cultural and linguistic identity. This resolution rightly condemns Beijing's repression of the Tibetan people, calls on Beijing to stop interfering in Tibetan Buddhism, and expresses support for the autonomy and cultural identity of Tibetans. I strongly support and thank Representative McCall for bringing this bill forward, and I call on all of my colleagues to do the same so that the Tibetan people know that the United States of America is solidly in their support and have their back. And with that, I yield back.
Ranking member yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? I'm going to recognize myself. I want to thank my colleague, Chairman Emeritus McCall, as well, for leading this resolution today to honor His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama on his 90th birthday this past year. For over 6 decades in exile, His Holiness has been a voice for the Tibetan people as they resist the Chinese Communist Party, their campaign to erase their identity through forced sanitization. Now, despite Beijing's best efforts to suppress the Tibetan language and their religion and their culture, the Dalai Lama has kept the flame of the Tibetan people and their heritage alive worldwide through a peaceful resistance that can only be described as inspiring. And so I would like to say I support this resolution, and again, I thank you for your work on this. Do any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. The committee will move to consideration of amendments. Do any members wish to offer an amendment? Being no further amendments, I move that the committee reports H.Res. 515 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to.
I asked for a roll call vote.
A roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This roll call vote will be postponed. Thank you. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4368, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative Authorization Act. This bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4368, to authorize the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative to enhance the United States Caribbean Security Partnership to prioritize natural disaster resilience and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. And also, without objection, the Salazar Amendment, in the nature of a substitute, circulated to members in advance, shall be considered as read and will be treated as original text for the purpose of amendment. I recognize the author of the bill, Representative Salazar, for any remarks that you may have.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'm proud the committee is considering H.R. 4368, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative Authorization Act. After a very successful military operation that got Nicolas Maduro out of Venezuela and took the economic oxygen away from this regime, the United States is back where it belongs, in the Caribbean, catching the bad guys, or the bad hombres like the president would say, and standing with our partners. But the job is not finished. Transnational gangs, organizations, narco-traffickers, and corrupt networks are flooding the region still. So they are recruiting youth, smuggling drugs and humans, and undermining the rule of law. And usually behind them, as always, stand the usual suspects: Cuba, China, Russia, Iran. This legislation draws a very clear line. It strengthens maritime and border security. It targets criminal finances. It trains police officers and prosecutors. In other words, it fights corruption and makes sure that China or Cuba or Russia is not the partner that the Caribbean nations pick or decide to work with. We work with allies like the Dominican Republic, like Jamaica and Guyana, Trinidad, Bahamas, Belize, democratic nations not run by dictators. This initiative, Mr. Chairman, says something very simple. The Caribbean is not for sale, and it is not a playground for authoritarians. America First agenda means the America First, or the Americas First, period. With initiatives like this bill, combined with President Trump's and Secretary Rubio's commitment to safeguard our backyard, we can usher in a stronger, more free, more prosperous era of foreign policy for our hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Representative Salazar yields back. Ranking Member Meeks is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Ms. Salazar and Congressman Espaillat for H.R. 4368. I strongly support this measure. The Caribbean Basin Security Initiative Authorization Act is a vital bill to bolster our security partnerships with countries in the Caribbean. The bill allows the United States government to expand collaboration and cooperation with the 13 countries in areas such as countering illicit narcotics and firearms flows and stopping the proliferation of gangs and criminal networks. For far too long, the Caribbean has been a neglected segment of the United States diplomacy. But what happens in Kingston, Port-au-Prince, or Bridgetown affects our communities from New York to Florida and beyond. And when the United States disengages from the Caribbean, others step in. If we want a Western Hemisphere grounded in stability, democratic governance, and shared prosperity, then sustained engagement in the Caribbean is not optional. It is essential. And that is why the Caribbean must remain a core focus of the United States diplomacy for safer borders, stronger partners, and a more stable hemisphere. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Ranking Member yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. I support H.R. 4368, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative Authorization Act, introduced by Representatives Espaillat and Salazar. The Caribbean is not a distant region to the United States. It's our neighborhood. What happens there affects our security, our economy, and our values. For years, the United States has worked with Caribbean partners to confront transnational crime, violence, corruption, and natural disasters through CBSI. This amendment finally places that work on a clear statutory footing. This legislation pairs security cooperation with rule of law, justice sector reform, and civil society engagement. It strengthens congressional oversight, including by requiring implementation plans, benchmarks, and reporting requirements. It's an important bipartisan piece of legislation that I strongly support. I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself. I want to thank my colleagues, Representative Espaillat and Representative Salazar, for their bipartisan leadership on this bill. The Caribbean Basin Security Initiative has been a useful tool for advancing U.S. security interests in our own neighborhood for over a decade. This bill puts CBSI on solid statutory footing and ensures Congress has proper oversight over all of these programs. I urge my colleagues to support this piece of legislation. Again, I thank you for your work on this. There being no further discussion of the bill, committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Representative Castro.
I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk shall distribute the amendment.
The amendment has been distributed by electronic device.
Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4368, offered by Mr. Castro of Texas.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the representative is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I offer this amendment to strengthen the legislation before us by implementing a recommendation of the Government Accountability Office. As members know, the GAO recently reviewed U.S. efforts to address firearms trafficking in the Caribbean, including under the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. The GAO found that while the State Department and its partners recognize firearms trafficking as a major driver of violence in the region, one key recommendation from that review remains unfulfilled. Specifically, the GAO recommended that the State Department update CBSI's results framework to include clear, measurable indicators related to firearms trafficking. Without those indicators, it's difficult for Congress or for the department itself to assess whether our programs are achieving their intended outcomes. That recommendation from GAO has yet to be implemented by the Department of State. My amendment is straightforward. It simply requires the State Department to implement that GAO recommendation by updating the CBSI results framework to establish specific indicators related to firearms trafficking. This amendment does not create new programs. It does not authorize additional funding, and it does not limit the department's flexibility to work with our Caribbean partners. It ensures that when firearms trafficking is identified as a priority, we have the tools to measure progress and evaluate results. And I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
I support Mr. Castro's amendment that would implement recommendations made in a 2024 GAO to address illegal firearms trafficking to the Caribbean by improving the way the Department of State tracks the flows of these firearms into the hands of gangs and transnational crime organizations. This report found an astounding 73% of firearms recovered from 25 Caribbean countries came from the United States of America. If the United States is going to help address citizen security and strengthen the rule of law in the Caribbean, stopping firearms trafficking into the region is an essential first step. And with that, I ask support of the gentleman's amendment.
Do any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. Being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Castro. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other amendments? Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 4368 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment, motion is agreed to.
Ask for a roll call vote.
A roll call vote has been requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Thank you. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 3307, the Eastern Mediterranean Gateway Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 3307, to increase cooperation with countries in the Eastern Mediterranean region in order to strengthen energy security and defense capabilities and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I now recognize, does anybody seek recognition? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Eastern Mediterranean connects Europe, the Middle East, and the Gulf. It's where the sea lanes, undersea cables, pipelines, ports, and power links converge. When this region is stable and connected, it strengthens the resilience of our allies and the credibility of our diplomacy. H.R. 3307 is a focused bill to support the role of the Eastern Mediterranean countries as a strategic gateway in the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridors. It advances energy security and defense cooperation through practical steps Congress can oversee. It builds on a bipartisan foundation Congress has already laid in the region. The bill reinforces important diplomatic initiatives Congress has supported for years. These include the Greece, Cyprus, Israel, U.S. 3+1 format, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, and the Abraham Accords. It also calls for the resuming of the 3+1 at the secretary level and for using the trilateral dialogue among Israel, Greece, and Cyprus on energy, maritime security, cybersecurity, and the protection of critical infrastructure as a guide for this work. H.R. 3307 also keeps the Department of State's approach strategic and disciplined. It directs the Secretary of State to prioritize the Eastern Mediterranean with a clear focus on energy security and defense cooperation. It authorizes multilateral strategic dialogues with IMEC countries where we already have bilateral strategic dialogues. So this effort stays anchored in the existing relationships and real capacity. Oversight is central to this bill. It requires annual reporting on implementation, including updates on energy projects and defense cooperation. It requires a briefing on multilateral initiatives between the United States and IMEC countries. It directs an analysis of the Cyprus Center for Land, Open Seas, and Port Security, known as Cyclops, as a potential model for broader multilateral cooperation. It also calls for a feasibility study on expanding proven U.S.-Israel-style bilateral research and development and science programs so other Eastern Mediterranean countries and IMEC countries can benefit from the same practical architecture. I am very proud to have introduced this bill with my colleague on this committee, Representative Dina Titus from Nevada. I'm also grateful for the bipartisan co-leads, Representatives Bilirakis from Florida, Miliotakis from New York, and Pappas from New Hampshire. I urge adoption and yield the balance of my time.
Representative yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
I want to thank Representative Snyder, and I support this measure. Tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean remain a significant challenge that we must tackle to protect the United States' foreign policy and security interests in Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. But this committee and the U.S. Congress have also long recognized the Eastern Mediterranean region's significant potential to strengthen energy, economic, and security ties between our European allies and the partners and those in the Middle East. Successive administrations have also worked to strengthen these ties. Building on the success of the 3+1 format, the Abraham Accords, and other initiatives, this bill would seek to apply those models even further to the Eastern Med region and beyond. This would be a worthy effort and a continuation of the good work of this committee. So again, I'm grateful to Mr. Snyder for putting this bill forward. I strongly support it, and I urge all of my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are clearly significant opportunities in the Eastern Mediterranean, and helping the countries in the region better integrate their work on energy cooperation could support stability in the region. And I want to support a bill that does this and strengthens ties with U.S. allies like Greece. We should be doing more to connect the United States economically through the Eastern Mediterranean to India. This legislation can certainly do much of this, and I appreciate my colleague, Mr. Snyder's work to do this. But there are provisions in here that lead me to oppose the bill. In particular, Section 6 of the bill calls for including Eastern Mediterranean and IMEC countries within a number of U.S.-Israel binational science programs. For decades, these programs operated without controversy and have been engines of technological and economic growth that benefited both the United States and Israel. Thousands of scientists from both countries have benefited from these programs, and it's led to more innovation. From the inception of these programs in 1972 and 1977 to 2020, they were prohibited from working within institutions located in settlements in the West Bank. This was a long-standing bipartisan policy that was overturned in October 2020 when the first Trump administration changed the bylaws to allow for partnering with such institutions. It unacceptably politicized a program that worked by making it a vehicle to legitimize settlements. While the Biden administration adopted a policy of not funding projects and settlements, as far as I can tell, the underlying bylaws of the programs have yet to be revised to what they were between the 1970s and 2020. And we're currently in the midst of record settler violence and expansion in the West Bank. The Israeli Knesset has taken votes to annex the West Bank. The Israeli government has approved the E1 settlement project just east of Jerusalem. This settlement would effectively cut off all of Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank and make a two-state solution, for example, virtually impossible. Tebe, a majority Christian village in the West Bank, had been repeatedly subject to attack by Israeli settlers. Across the West Bank, people have been beaten, shot, and killed for their land. Disturbingly, settlers have been enabled or supported by the IDF. Inviting more countries into programs that work with research institutions and illegal settlements would only further legitimize those settlements and the Israeli project to annex or take the entirety of the West Bank. I don't believe at this time especially we can reward bad behavior. While I support many of the goals of this legislation and respect the author's work on it, I would need to see a revision of these programs and to what they were in the decades past. Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to be a co-sponsor of the Eastern Mediterranean Gateway Act, a bill that encourages American cooperation with our allies in the Eastern Mediterranean. America's partnerships with our allies in the Eastern Mediterranean are critical. For instance, the 3+1 partnership involving Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the United States has been integral to advancing shared energy and security interests. The Eastern Mediterranean Gateway Act would extend the foundation by recognizing the important support that these Eastern Mediterranean countries provide as an economic gateway between India and Europe. This bipartisan legislation supports our Eastern Mediterranean allies by noting their strategic importance in the dialogues regarding IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Additionally, it builds on existing innovative partnerships between the United States and Israel. I thank my colleagues for their partnership and urge the committee to support this important legislation. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself for a moment. I want to thank my colleagues, Representative Schneider, for introducing this piece of legislation. I rise in support. Any further discussion? Being no further discussion, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Being no further amendments, I move the committee report H.R. 3307 to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. That vote will be postponed. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 7052, the Conflict Prevention Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 7052, to establish a Center for Conflict Analysis, Planning, and Prevention in the Department of State and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I recognize the author of the bill, Representative Jacobs, for any comments you may have.
Thank you, Chairman Mast and Ranking Member Meeks for considering my bill, the Conflict Prevention Act, with Chairman Emeritus McCall, to establish a Center for Conflict Analysis, Planning, and Prevention within the State Department. So it institutionalizes and centers conflict prevention as a key part of U.S. foreign policy rather than as an afterthought. My bill will ensure the department maintains a permanent institutional center of expertise so our diplomats can more skillfully engage in conflict prevention and stabilization, peace processes, and complex negotiations. This center would be led by a director that reports to the Undersecretary for Political Affairs. It would focus on forecasting, trend analysis, and early warning tools, giving policymakers the ability to intervene diplomatically before violence escalates, when prevention is cheaper, less risky, and more effective than military or humanitarian responses. It would also ensure that there is a dedicated center for implementation of the Global Fragility Act, which my friend Mr. McCall passed into law back in 2019. Lastly, it would improve our decision-making with better analysis so we're not just throwing money at problems, but investing and responding strategically and in a way that is aligned with our broader foreign policy priorities. Ultimately, my bill would help the U.S. avoid preventable conflicts, spend resources more wisely, and protect both global stability and American interests at far lower human and financial cost. We successfully included the same language in last year's base text of the state authorization bill, so I'm proud and hopeful that we can also pass this as a standalone today. I want to thank Chairman Emeritus McCall for his partnership on this important bill, and I urge my colleagues to support it. I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
I support this measure, and I want to I support this measure, and I want to thank Representative Jacobs for her hard work on it. This bill establishes a Center for Conflict Analysis, Planning, and Prevention to ensure that the Department of State has the dedicated institutional expertise it needs to anticipate and address crises before they escalate. This center will provide a permanent hub of technical expertise, staffed with trained practitioners who can support regional bureaus and embassies with rigorous conflict analysis, mediation support, and strategic planning. Unfortunately, this administration's State Department reorganization diminished such capacities. But with this bill, the department will have the tools to better forecast emerging hotspots, strengthen U.S. engagement in peace processes, and make informed decisions about how to use our limited resources. So I again thank Representative Jacobs, and I urge all of my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back.
Do any other, Representative Zinke, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't see a fiscal note. Was there a fiscal note attached to it?
I don't believe that there was one attached to it.
Thank you.
Do any other members seek recognition? Seeing none, here we go. Being no further discussion of the bill, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none. Being no further amendments, I move that the committee reports H.R. 7052 to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Opinion of the chair. The ayes have it. The
Mr.
motion is
Chairman,
agreed to.
I request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will be postponed. Thank you. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 6275, the China AI Power Report Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 6275, to require the Secretary of Commerce to submit a report annually on the advanced artificial intelligence capabilities of the People's Republic of China and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I now recognize Representative Moylan, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to provide remarks on H.R. 6275, and I urge my colleagues today to support H.R. 6275, the China AI Power Report Act. The report describes under this legislation is not narrowly focused on one aspect of PRC's AI capabilities. It is an assessment of the PRC's entire AI ecosystem, including the hardware and semiconductor fabrication capacity. Its softwares, designs, tools, AI models, computer capabilities, and its research applications. Most importantly, this report will require an assessment on how the PRC's AI ecosystem is being deployed in other security areas, including military operations, surveillance, and high-risk industries. If we are intent on winning the AI race against PRC, policymakers must be equipped with the knowledge to make data-driven decisions on export controls. The challenge we are confronting here today is beyond just economics. Unlike the past, PRC is not just seeking the bulk of global market share. What they want is supremacy in a modern military power and the ability to lead the world in most advanced emerging technologies. This is what China AI strategies emphasize, a fusion of AI applications to its most critical sectors. Export controls are not just about maintaining our economic advantage, and on contrary to what critics say. Export controls are not about stalling innovation. It's about ensuring that our own technologies, made with our own research and engineering, do not go to the power our adversaries' quest to upseat our nation. Export controls, and we have data to prove it. In the last several years, China's AI industry has stalled in comparison to the US, and that is because our export controls on our most advanced chips. But there is much more to export controls than the chips alone. They must include the whole ecosystem from the software to the manufacturer equipment to the cloud systems. Our controls have to be dynamic and informed across a rapid changing environment. This is what the China AI Power Report Act seeks to do. The US must have the advantage in AI. That is imperative. With that, I respectfully urge affirmative vote on H.R. 6275. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
I too support this measure. The Trump administration's artificial intelligence action plan makes clear that the United States must achieve global dominance in artificial intelligence, AI. The People's Republic of China has also made this a central objective and is working, in their own words, to capture the global lead in AI development by 2030. To effectively lead in this race, we need a clear and comprehensive assessment of the PRC's capability and industry. The annual report mandated by this bill would analyze China's capabilities and activities in the AI space, similar to the Department of Defense China Military Power Report. This will assist the United States government in comparing Americans' own AI industry and capabilities with those of China's and help shape AI policy. So I support this measure, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Do any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself. We are in a technology competition with the People's Republic of China that will define generations to come. I don't think any of us are naive to that. Now, where is this competition more consequential than with artificial intelligence, a technology that I think we can all acknowledge will reshape our economy, our military, our national security for decades to come. Every year, the Department of War delivers to Congress a comprehensive assessment of China's military capabilities. This report has become essential to how we understand the threat and calibrate our response. It is time that we treat artificial intelligence with the same seriousness. The China AI Power Report establishes a standardized annual review of China's AI capabilities. And beyond that, I think it's important that we all have full recognition, both in here, open source, in a SCIF with classified information in every which way that we can about what their capabilities are. The Secretaries of Commerce and State will lead the effort in consultation with the Secretaries of War and Energy, the Director of National Intelligence, and other relevant agencies. This locks in a unified playbook for Congress, the administration, and our national security apparatus. Again, AI is central to the future of American power and national security, and this bill elevates it accordingly. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Moylan, for his leadership on this critical bill, and I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting it. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion of the bill, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk shall distribute the amendment. Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 6275, offered by Mr. Moylan of Guam.
Without
Page
objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the representative is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment to H.R. 6275, the China AI Power Report Act, is targeted and ensures that the report outlined in this bill meets the goals it sets out to do. Specifically, the amendment adds 2 important versions. First, it adds the Department of State as a co-author to the report alongside with the Department of Commerce. Second, It requires a detailed assessment of the PRC's key objectives in global standards diplomacy and how they may go against the U.S. objectives. These provisions do not change the underlying legislation. They recognize the important role the State Department plays in allied coordination on AI and data collection on the PRC's capabilities. Ultimately, the amendment seeks to improve outcomes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
Yeah, I support this amendment, which makes the report a joint report from the Department of State and Commerce and ensures that we are countering China's efforts. Thank you. Ensure that we are countering China's efforts and international standards setting bodies. And I support it and yield back the balance of my time.
Do any other members seek recognition? Rise in support of the amendment. Any further discussion? Question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Moylan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
Mr. Chair, request a vote.
A roll call vote has been requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this, yes. Actually, hold on one second, Mr. Moylan. I don't think you want to vote on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Withdraw the recorded vote on this.
Very good. No recorded vote is requested. Any further amendments? Seeing none. Thank you. Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 6275 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. In the opinion, all those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to.
Mr. Chair, request a recorded vote.
Roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will also be postponed. Thank you. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 6875, the AI Overwatch Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and the clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 6875, to require the
Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open to amendment at any point. Without objection, the Mast amendment, in the nature of a substitute, circulated to members in advance, shall be considered as read and will be treated as the original text for purpose of the amendment. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak on this amendment. Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues who have joined me in supporting this bill at a crucial time for the future of AI and America's national security. I also want to thank the administration and the Department of War for their constructive partnership and assistance with this bill. The amendment, in the nature of a substitute, incorporates technical assistance from the administration that further strengthens the bill by allowing the administration to add more countries to the list of those that would fall under this oversight if it wishes to. When the United States considers selling a C-130 or a fighter jet or an engine that goes on one of those airframes or ordnance that goes on the wing of a jet or the avionics that go in a cockpit, or anything that has military use, it goes through a process known as the foreign military sales process. If we are selling another country anything that could give them an advantage on the battlefield, it requires congressional notification, because accountability to our warfighters means that we need to have more than just nameless bureaucrats in agencies deciding what tools are sold. Members of Congress need to take the responsibility and pay attention. This bill creates the same congressional oversight for advanced AI chips that are being requested for sale to China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba. Why? because AI chips are used by our enemies' militaries just as much as they are used by our military. Secretary of War just this month released their AI acceleration strategy that stated AI-enabled warfare and AI-enabled capability development will redefine the character of military affairs over the next decade. If we were just talking about war games on Xbox, then Jensen Huang can sell as many chips as he wants to anybody that he wants. And I should have absolutely no business having a say about whether he wants to do that. But this is not about kids playing Halo on their television. This is about the future of military warfare. It is not video game warfare. It is real strategy. It is real data crunching. It is a real-time decision-making. Everything from a drone strike to a nuke. It is real weapons systems, real warfare. And you can ask the Russians and the Ukrainians if it's real casualties. That's why these advanced chips need to fall under the same oversight as any other military-related system. That's why this bill is coming before us today, because companies like NVIDIA are requesting to sell millions of advanced AI chips, which are the cutting edge of warfare, to Chinese military companies like Alibaba and Tencent. The same companies that work to spy against the United States of America, companies that the Chinese commies used to try and defeat the United States of America. This bill is very simple. It keeps America's advanced AI chips out of the hands of Chinese commie spies. BIS wisely just released a rule that says, among other things, advanced AI chip sales cannot go to Chinese military end users. And the sale of these chips to foreign countries cannot reduce the amount that are available to American companies. We agree on that goal, and it's Congress's responsibility to make sure that we reach that goal. That is what we want. We agreed on the end goal. We want to make sure that we get to that point. I give credit where credit is due. I give credit for America's AI dominance to two very specific places. Number one, the great American companies that build chips, that left Chinese companies like Huawei in the dust. It makes me proud to be an American. American ingenuity is driving this. Well done, NVIDIA. Well done, Jensen Huang, and others that were a part of creating this great tech. You deserve all the credit in the world for that. I also give credit for our advancement beyond China to this, President Trump, putting the right checks in place to make sure that America is not doing stupid things, to make sure we're not selling the tools that make the most advanced AI chips to China. That was done previously. Or to make sure that the United States of America is not selling the most advanced chip right now, the Blackwell, to China, or future most advanced chips like the Rubin. But it can't just be the chip that's labeled number one that we are paying attention to. 1 year ago today, DeepSeek, which absolutely works with the Chinese military, launched its model. That should be considered a Sputnik moment. That was a wake-up call to America and the world that China, even using America's second best or third best chips, even using those, that they were good enough for China to compete with America's best AI models. We all agree, I believe that we all agree, that we are in an AI arms race. So why wouldn't we want to know what the AI arms dealers want to sell to our adversaries? In that, I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this bill. Do any other members seek recognition? Ranking Member Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the ANS, and I want to thank you, and I'm joined as a co-sponsor of this bill. Thank you for working with me to reach a bipartisan compromise on this important bill. You've called and worked very strenuously, and I think that it is important, and I thank you for that. At this very moment, the Trump administration is on the verge of approving the sale of NVIDIA's H200 chips to China, which will harm our national security and undercut America's advantage in the AI race. How do we know this? Because the majority has hosted multiple private roundtables, as well as a hearing last week explaining so. The overwhelming consensus among everyone that appeared before the committee, Democrats and Republicans, was that access to American AI chips would bolster China in the AI race. President Trump's decision to permit the sale of these advanced chips to China, while seizing 25% of the profits, is a strategic mistake of the highest order, and it demands that Congress act. And that's exactly why I introduced the Restrict Act, alongside many Democratic members of this committee, to prohibit the sale of H-200s to China and codify the Biden administration's restrictions. And while I wish the bill before us today directly prohibited the sale of H-200s, it nevertheless puts in place robust guardrails that would delay those sales and allow for congressional review and oversight going forward. It would force the administration to certify to Congress that particular license approvals of H-200s do not undermine America's national security, its industry, or its ability to lead in the AI race. So again, I want to thank the chairman for adding an outright ban on the sale of NVIDIA's Blackwell chips to China. I have been so worried that the president wouldn't stop at just H-200s, and that when he next meets with Xi Jinping, he'll put the Blackwells on the table. This bipartisan A&S would take Blackwells off the tables for 2 years. It also demands a strategy on how to win the AI race that should govern AI chip controls going forward. We must lead. So let's pass this bill and send a clear message that our national security, our foreign policy, and our technological crown jewels are not for sale. Let's reject the idea that a 25% export tariff somehow addresses the national security concerns that are at stake here. I strongly support this A&S, and I urge all of my colleagues to support this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Do any other members seek recognition?
Chairman.
Chairman Emeritus McCall.
Mr. Chairman, let me congratulate and thank you for your moral courage, moral clarity on an issue that is perhaps one of the most important issues that this committee has jurisdiction over. As many members may know or may not know, this is one of the few areas that we have jurisdiction over the Department of Commerce in. We're in a great power competition. China's made it clear that they have a 100-year goal of military and economic domination. And AI is the key to achieving that very goal. As the chairman points out, AI has a direct connection. Advanced chips, AI chips, are directly connected to advanced weapons systems. That's why putting this under the foreign military sales rubric, I think, is brilliant. Because these advanced AI chips are weapons, in my judgment, or the foundation blocks to creating these advanced weapons systems. I remember back when I was a young federal prosecutor in the China investigation, looking into money coming from China into the presidential campaign. Money from China Aerospace in deposit slips in Hong Kong going into the Clinton campaign. And why? Because they wanted our technology. They wanted our aerospace technology. They want our satellite technology. The year was 1997. They have advanced significantly since that time. And I have the saying, they steal it. They steal trillions in intellectual property, but for God's sakes, we don't have to sell it to them. Just last month, in my home state of Texas, the U.S. Attorney cracked down on the illegal smuggling of these H200 chips to China, and at that time stated that these chips form, quote, the building blocks of AI superiority and are integral to modern military applications. I couldn't agree more with him as a former U.S. attorney. NVIDIA chips led to the creation of DeepSeek AI, China's AI company. What more evidence do we need? Now, granted, it was legal at that time. Now it is not. But the sale of 2 million of these advanced chips to China, in my judgment, is dangerous. I introduced the CHIPS bill at the urging of Secretary Mike Pompeo and Wilbur Ross to make America first in the manufacturing of semiconductor chips. By passing this bill, we will make America first in the manufacturing of the most advanced AI chips known to mankind, rather than selling our national security to China, one of our greatest adversaries in this great power competition. We can't allow China to exploit U.S. technology and intellectual property as they've done so many times in the past. That's why I strongly support what the chairman's trying to do here. You know, last Congress, as chairman, I passed almost, I think unanimously out of committee, the Enforce Act, which would ban the sale of military-grade AI technology to China. It was very popular, it was very widely supported, yet it was blocked from coming to the House floor, as was the outbound investment bill that we passed out of this committee. Why? Because there are special interest groups out there right now with millions of dollars funded by the very people who will profit off of the sale of these chips and others that have so much at stake that they are waging a social media campaign war against this idea and against this bill, which the chairman is advancing to protect the national security interest of the United States of America. Shame on them, both when I was chairman trying to pass this legislation and now. And Mr. Chairman, I want to work strongly with you to ensure that doesn't happen again, that we get this bill that is probably the most America First bill I've seen in this Congress get to the floor, because we know we have the votes to pass it to protect us from China and the great power competition. With that, I yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Kamala-Gerdau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will be supporting this bill. You know, over the past year, Trump has turned one of our most important national security tools, export controls on advanced AI technologies, into his own personal negotiating device. He traded away export controls on cutting-edge AI chips to de-escalate his own trade war with the PRC. He has effectively paused any new export controls on China to maintain the détente, preferring to bully our allies rather than confront our adversaries. He sold leading-edge semiconductor chips to AI labs in the UAE and Saudi Arabia that are backed by companies doing business with his family members and key advisors. And he greenlit the export of the most advanced AI chip we have ever sold to China, the H200s. This is the mind state of a bad hombre to the United States. And as we have seen time and time again, Trump has no problem selling out our national security, whether that's betraying our Afghan allies and the service members who relied on them, dismantling USAID and our global soft power, or rupturing the post-World War transatlantic alliance by backstabbing Ukraine and trying to take over Greenland. Trump is out of control and needs to be reeled in. And that is why the AI Overwatch Act is so important. It is a clapback, finally, that the American people are waiting for from this Congress. To support what I've heard already, this bill takes the only meaningful steps to constrain Trump's reckless foreign policy that I have seen from the majority in the past year. It bans the export of Blackwells to China, which Trump has repeatedly entertained selling to the PRC, and it increases congressional oversight of the AI chip sales Trump is facilitating for Xi Jinping. This bill helps reassert Congress's role in a key part of our foreign policy and stand up to this administration's dangerous behavior. I feel like today I could say Congress finally woke up for a little bit, amen. And I am so glad to support this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's unusual for me to nuance a difference between one of your bills and my view of what we should do, but I'm going to try to do that here today. First of all, I will support moving this bill forward. I think it is too important for us not to begin the process of moving this to becoming law. Having said that, as a member of the Science Committee, as a member of Judiciary Committee chairing AI development there and its regulation, and as somebody who came from an industry that exported and used tools and saw one cutting-edge product today become simply a chip for the gaming industry or some other use in just a few years, I know how fast-moving this process is. And so the deep concerns I have, sufficient to speak out here today, include, but are not limited to, the way this bill is currently structured. It begins to put us into the position of being a regulator. Let me assure you, Congress is not a good regulator. We pass on the specifics of fast-moving decision-making to the executive branch and they to experts, and in this case, a broad array of parts of the government in order to ensure that they can be both effective and flexible when they need to be. I believe that we need to maintain that. For that reason, a number of areas concern me that I'll briefly call up. One of them is that if, as the bill says, you can essentially retroactively, by an ordinary vote in the House and Senate, take back a product that may have been weeks or months in preparation and that has been approved by the administration, means that the timeline to beginning the production of something that might take many months to produce doesn't start until after the time runs out by Congress. That period of uncertainty seems to be one that could lead to a number of problems. That doesn't mean that this bill or its intent is in any way defective. I think just the opposite. It is necessary, it is essential that we find the right balance. So as of today, the administration has not weighed in other than technical corrections to make the bill solid. I believe that in the weeks to come, that we can, in fact, work with the administration to bring what is probably fairly nuanced differences, but one that would allow BIS as the lead, along with all the other elements, to continue to be able to go through a process hand in hand with the administration. One example that may become part of it is a notification at the front end of the process to Congress with sufficient detail for Congress to act early in the process rather than later in the process. That doesn't change the fact that if Congress at any time believes that we should second guess a decision to allow for a product to be exported now or in the future, that we can't do that. That remains our right. But in this case, it's done by an expedited privilege process, and it's done after approvals effectively have been completed. So again, I hope I've been able to slightly nuance that this and other areas of concern caused me to say, A, let's move this forward. B, let's continue working along with the administration to make sure that we second guess when necessary, but do not take an unwarranted step toward trying to be a regulator. We're not the BIS. We're not even the other elements of that decision process. In closing, Mr. Chairman, national security is important to us. We absolutely do not want to sell the modern equivalent of the rope that hangs us to our adversary. And for that reason, I will support moving this forward, but with sufficient reservations that I will work in good faith to see that it may have small changes, but that it becomes law. And with that, I thank the chairman for his leadership and yield back.
Representative yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Representative Kim.
Thank you, Chairman Mast. As an original co-sponsor of the AI Overwatch Act, I strongly support this vital legislation, which builds on President Trump's bold vision for American leadership in AI and national security. This bill aligns with complements the President's national security guardrails on AI, while codifying the administration's ban on exporting top-grade chips to China, as laid out in the Bureau of Industry and Security's recent January 15 rule on H.200 chips. The Trump administration has been clear-eyed on winning the AI arms race against China and closing any export control loopholes. Meanwhile, the last administration made concessions to China, lifting sanctions on a blacklisted Chinese government entity that are linked to Uyghur human rights abuses to secure cooperation on another issue. We need to make sure future administrations prioritize national security and keeping America first in AI, which is exactly what this bill does. This bill provides for robust congressional review of sensitive AI chips exports to countries of concern like China. This is nothing new. Congressional review over foreign arms sales critical to our national security has been a long-standing practice for decades. I want to clarify that the AI Overwatch Act provides exemptions for trusted U.S. entities and does not force approvals and does not limit the president's ability to enact even stricter controls. Our American AI chip industry stands at the forefront of global technological innovation. This bill empowers them to drive U.S. leadership by prioritizing exports to allies and partners as outlined in the President's AI Action Plan, while safeguarding domestic availability and protecting our edge in AI models and computing capabilities. By updating congressional oversight, this act ensures we do not hand over dual-use AI chips to power our adversaries' militaries, surveillance activities, cyber operations, nuclear development, and autonomous weapons. Advanced AI chips will shape future military and economic power. The AI Overwatch Act ensures oversight evolves with technology, blocks adversaries from weapon-enabling AI, and anchors allies to American systems, locking in the U.S. dominance for generations to come. I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation. Thank you, and I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Huizenga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first and foremost, I want to compliment you and a number of others that have been working on not just this specific piece of legislation, but on this issue overall. And you were gracious enough when I became subcommittee chairman to include this BIS issue in my portfolio. It's been something I've only half-quipped to some colleagues that I've spent more time in a SCIF in the last 8 months than I have in my 8 terms that I've been here. But it has been very productive. I think it has been very enlightening. I hope that some of the passion from my colleagues on the other side for Congress reasserting itself, I believe was maybe the term, would hold to whatever future legislation or administrations might be. But I'm part of this because I do believe Congress has a proper role in being involved in the conversation here, and I do want to urge my colleagues to support the AI Overwatch bill overall. Since the beginning of the 119th Congress, we have held 9 member-level engagements, 9. Including hearings and roundtables with administration officials, industry leaders, and experts on the significance of the AI arms race. The AI Overwatch Act is a culmination of those conversations and helps us win this new arms race in a few ways. First, it codifies the president's call for strong national security conditions on the sale of AI chips to China. And no chips can be sold to the Chinese military or its contractors. It also codifies the president's ban on the sale of Blackwells to China. Second, it codifies the Commerce Department's H.200 rule requiring that sales of millions of AI chips to China do not make it harder for Americans and American companies to access those chips themselves. In periods of AI chip shortages, Americans should not be waiting in line behind Chinese companies. Third, it supports the administration's AI action plan by accelerating sales of AI chips worldwide for American cloud companies. America must beat China in the global build-out of the AI, I believe, and this is a modern era arms race. And I understand in all of our conversations, Mr. Chairman, you and I had one yesterday with some folks. We've had a number of these conversations with people in the ecosystem, in the administration, in the industry. And I understand that some people have different perspective. They have a different lens which they view this through. They have a different strategy as to how and maybe sometimes even why we need to keep an edge here with our U.S. technology. I'm glad we're putting this stake in the ground. This is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of the conversation, but this is a very important conversation and maybe the conversation to have. This bill sets us off on that journey, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate what you're doing. So the stakes can't be higher. Congress has a role to play in ensuring that the AI revolution is an American story and not a Chinese story. With that, I'll yield back.
Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Davidson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for working diligently on this legislation and frankly in this arena. The reality is AI and chips are quickly becoming the preeminent dual-use technology on battlefields of tomorrow and in the economies that shape global power. Both hardware and software we export may someday be used to put lives at risk, and frankly, even the data. And so for that reason, I was glad to work with colleagues in the House and Senate to introduce the Biological Intellectual Property Protection Act just last month. Representative Chrissy Houlihan here in the House, in the Senate, Senators Tom Cotton, Ted Budd, and Maggie Hassan. So this is an issue that, as we've seen today, is bipartisan, and maybe for different reasons, but we've operated under a congressional review process for arms shipments governed by the Arms Export Control Act for generations in order to ensure that shipments are in the national interest, that they don't endanger our warfighters, so defense and offense. They advance our interests and defend our interests. So Congress should also scrutinize chip exports that may be used for dual-use technology. In recent days, influencers at the behest of foreign governments and corporate lobbyists have spread immense amounts of lies and half-truths about the AI Overwatch Act, trying to scuttle this legislation. So I applaud you for continuing on and bringing this to the floor. Some have tried to call it somehow pro-China when the opposite's clear. Somehow people have called it anti-Trump when the reality is it implements the offensive plan President Trump has laid out for American companies to lead the way, as Mr. Huizenga highlighted, in cloud computing and other execution of our policy. And as far as holding any administration accountable, good grief, last term we were governed by the auto pen apparently. So who knows what kind of scrutiny was going on. So while President Trump is there ready to sign a bill, Congress does need to take action, and we need to pass laws, not just executive orders. So far from tying the president's hands, this bill simply ensures that a review process to ensure chip sales are aligned with the other arms export controls that we're doing. Nobody would claim that the Arms Export Control Act procedures are somehow a grave violation of presidential power. Far from it. Congressional review of dual-use technology transfer ensures that these decisions are so often made, at a staff level. They're done in a bipartisan way because they're enduring. And don't we need that, not just a ping-pong back and forth from one cell phone and a pen to the next cell phone and a pen. This law is an important step for Congress. So thank you, Chairman Mast, and all the other co-sponsors, the team, for bringing this to this committee and hopefully to the floor soon. The future of chips and AI will define the future, and congressional oversight of it is frankly overdue, but it's timely right now. So I urge all of our colleagues to support it, and I yield back.
Will the gentleman
yield
yield?
to Mr. Huizinga.
Well, thank you, and I just wanted to comment on something that you had alluded to at sort of earlier in your conversation. We're seeing a lot of activity in social media spheres. Much of that is tied to paid programs where people are going out and they're literally being paid to go and hold these opinions and attacking the integrity, I think, of us writ large. And that shouldn't be allowed to stand. We have to fight back. We have to push back with the truth of what is really going on. And as you had said, that somehow this bill has been turned into a pro-China product is ludicrous on its face. And Mr. Chairman, I think you addressed that very effectively. But I just wanted to lend my voice on that, and I appreciate the opportunity to yield back.
Thank you, and I now yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong support of the AI Overwatch Act, a bill that ensures Congress can exercise proper oversight of America's export control regime. The Bureau of Industry and Security serves as an important role in ensuring America's innovative technologies never end up in the wrong hands. As China increasingly seeks to gain an edge in the AI arms race, BIS export controls are critical in ensuring that America maintains the lead. The stakes of the AI arms race are high. As former Deputy U.S. National Security Advisor Pottinger put it at a hearing last week, AI isn't just a pivotal technology. It is the pivotal technology that will determine whether the United States and its allies, or an axis of totalitarian regimes, control the means to lead in virtually all technologies, military and commercial. With such high stakes, Congress's role in overseeing America's export control regime is of incredible importance. And that's why I support the AI Overwatch Act, which ensures that Congress never abdicates its role in overseeing critical export controls. I support this bill, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, and I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Representative Moylan.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to speak in support of the amendment and the underlying legislation. And as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, I recognize that it's about time we began treating AI chips as a piece of hardware that is critical to maintaining our military advantage. We already have in place similar export controls on dual-use hardware that enhance our adversaries' military capabilities. It is time that we treat artificial intelligence technologies in the same way. AI will be a critical factor in military campaigns. Chips will power guidance systems, cyber warfare, and enable our adversaries to attack the American homeland. As a representative from Guam, I understand how critical this is for our national security. We must ensure that missile defense of our island through the build-out of Guam Missile Defense System and Golden Dome is coupled with our continued leadership and advantage on artificial intelligence. We cannot allow our own hardware to fuel China's military. Put simply, we cannot trip on our own laces during the race against China. AI Overwatch matters for the defense of our nation. It not only codifies bans on most advanced AI chips, but it gives this body oversight of advanced chip sales to our adversaries. I hope we can keep this at the top of the mind as we move to advance the chairman's bill through committee. With that, I yield back.
Any further discussion? There being no further discussion of the bill, the committee will move for consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment?
Mr.
Representative
Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall distribute the amendment. Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6875, offered by Mr. Amo of Rhode Island.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The representative is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Mast, I'm really grateful for your work to craft this bipartisan bill. The AI Overwatch Act is a critical step towards ensuring that we don't export our most sensitive AI technology. As AI continues to advance, we must protect our advanced AI technology from those who would harm the United States. We cannot, by any means, hand our advanced technology over to our adversaries on a silver platter. And just last week, this committee held a hearing on winning the AI arms race against China. We heard from experts on the importance of keeping our technology safe if we want to win the AI race. During this hearing, a bipartisan group of members spoke out against selling the H200 chips to China, and the bipartisan witnesses agreed. It was a welcome moment of bipartisan consensus in these divided times. H200 chips have 6 times more processing power than the current U.S. export controls to China. Allowing China to access these chips undermines our lead in the AI race and threatens our national security. My common sense amendment simply echoes the concerns that we heard in this room just last week. It expresses the sense of Congress that the sale of H200 chips to China would endanger our national security and our ability to win the AI race. My amendment also reaffirms the Justice Department's December position. When the DOJ shut down a smuggling ring that illegally exported H200 chips to China, they stated, quote, "Chips are the building blocks of AI superiority and are integral to modern military applications. The country that controls these chips will control AI technology. The country that controls AI technology will control the future." I rarely agree with the Trump Department of Justice on anything, but we are united on this. If that is not a sign of how critical protecting advanced chips is to our national security, I really don't know what else is. I hope that my Republican colleagues on this committee continue the bipartisan support for protecting our advanced AI technology by voting for this amendment. And I'm glad this committee is working to protect our AI technology. But before I yield the remainder of my time, I want to address a pretty big elephant in the room. Our Republican colleagues are once again refusing to face Trump's dueling crises of this very moment. This time, ignoring Trump's military action in Venezuela and his aggression towards Greenland. This is the Foreign Affairs Committee. When anyone, including the president, violates the sovereignty of another nation or threatens to invade or forcibly purchase a NATO ally, this committee should be prepared to respond. Instead, my colleagues are burying their heads in the sand. Many members of this committee have bills that address the situation in Venezuela and in Greenland. I've introduced the No NATO for Purchase Act to prohibit government funding from being used to purchase a NATO country or NATO-protected territory. But my Republican colleagues refuse to take these bills up. I'm going to keep asking. They refuse to address the issues created by their president. I'm going to keep demanding. So, Mr. Chairman, I urge you to take up these bills at the next markup and call hearings with administration officials. That's our job, to get answers, to ask questions, to do the hard work, and get to the bottom of the president's rhetoric and behavior towards Greenland and Venezuela. I yield back.
Representative yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? Recognize myself. Number one, I'm just going to start with responding to the comments about Greenland and Venezuela. I would thank, number one, the president for his vision to go after Greenland. When you look back in time, the United States of America was made fun of for going after Alaska from Russia, and most of us probably couldn't imagine the United States of America today without Alaska. And I'd also commend the president on his stones to go after Maduro, one of the worst criminals anywhere in our hemisphere. In that, I'm going to respond to the amendment. Thank you for offering your amendment. I do not support this amendment. The administration's H.200 rule and also the AI Overwatch Act provide detailed, robust conditions that ensure any H.200 exports will not harm U.S. national security in a number of different ways, about 6 different ways, to include that it doesn't prevent U.S. companies from getting their hands on them, to making sure there's no Chinese military end users. This sense of Congress would completely disregard those important national security conditions. And in that, I close my time, and I would ask any other members seek recognition. Seeing none. Without objection, seeing none. Question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Amo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Any further amendments?
I request a recorded vote.
Recording vote has been requested. Pursuant to the, we call that vote now? No, we'll do it later. We'll roll that vote as well. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Any further amendments? Seeing none. Thank you. Further proceedings on this bill will be postponed. The committee will stand in recess until 1:15 p.m. Committee will come to order. Committee postponed further proceedings on roll call vote on the amendment offered by Representative Amo to H.R. 6875, on which the noes had prevailed by voice. The question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? All members voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 20, the noes are 25.
The nays have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Being no further amendments, I move that the committee report H.R. 6875 as amended to the House with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Call for a roll call vote. Roll call vote has been requested. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Is Alma voting? No. Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 42, the noes are 2, 1 present.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 7036, the Data-Driven Diplomacy Act, favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. Clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 46, the noes are 1.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 7028 to require the Secretary of State to submit a notification to Congress prior to the obligating of funds for certain art-related purchases and for other purposes favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. Question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. Clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 46, the noes are 1.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 6411, the Preshevo Valley Discrimination Assessment Act, favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. Question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. Clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 44, the noes are 3.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table, and staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 7054 to require the Secretary of State to submit to Congress a notification of certain construction projects using non-standard designs favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 47, the noes 0.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 4532, the American Cooperation with Our Neighbors Act as amended favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. All members voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 43, the noes 4.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting House Resolution 515 commemorating the 90th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on July 6, 2025 as a day of compassion and expressing support for human rights, religious freedom, and cultural and linguistic protection of the Tibetan people as amended favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. Question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system, and the clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 46, the noes 1.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table, and staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 4368, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative Authorization Act, as amended favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 42, the noes 5.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table, and the staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 3307, the Eastern Mediterranean Gateway Act, favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. Question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system, and the clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 45, the noes 2.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 7052, the Conflict Prevention Act, favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Do any members wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 42, the noes 5.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. Committee postponed further proceedings on reporting H.R. 6275, the China AI Power Report Act, as amended favorably to the House, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The question now occurs on reporting the measure to the House with a favorable recommendation. Members will vote using the electronic voting system, and the clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will close the vote and report the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 47, the noes 0.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Staff is authorized to make any technical and conforming changes. This concludes consideration of the measures noticed by the committee for today. I want to thank all the members for their participation. There being no further business to transact, the committee stands adjourned.